Ken Campbell.
The Seekers Podcast.
Not a holiday, more not a holiday, more not a holiday. Walk about, snell speed, day long, lies one, half one, belong, everyone, something, bugger up, dead, finish yet, time.
Greetings, Seekers, and hilarious.
Welcome to Ken Campbell, the Seekers Podcast, hosted by me, Daisy Campbell, Ken's daughter, and David Bramwell.
So, Daisy, part one of Mystery Bruises ended with the Bonga Bonga
story. Which I absolutely love that story. And I believe that's absolutely 100% true.
This show kind of came about around the Channel 4 series that you made, Brain Spotting.
No, there were two. So the first one was Reality on the Rocks, and so Reality on the Rocks was much more the physics one. So that's where he interviewed Stephen Hawking, David Deutsch, and these guys. And Mystery Bruises was the show that he kind of did. Yes, he sort of got so interested in the people he was interviewing that by the time they were releasing the series on Channel 4, he'd also put together his own one-man show, which was handy and for him rather savvy, I imagine. Yeah. And then he did another, I think also three-parter for Channel 4 with the same guys called Brain Spotting, and that was the one where he was interviewing more sort of philosophers and looking at the question of what is a self and these kind of questions, which also were a big preoccupation of his even long before that as well.
He gave the impression of never being too enamoured with TV as an art form, or am I wrong about that?
Yeah, no, he got seriously enamoured with the whole idea that TV, and particularly TV news, is a potent brainwashing technique. And, you know, of course, it's the cathar rays that come out of the TV. So that's why he set himself up with a projector. That's why he had his amazing projector set up, because projection doesn't produce cathar rays in the same way. So that's all right.
I remember in one of his shows, he talks about supposedly being put on some blacklist for adverts because he'd done a Kit Kat advert back in the 70s. And the sales...
No, it wasn't the 70s. No, it was mid-80s, and he was the
devil.
Yeah, he was the devil. And they both come out of a lift, so the devil coming up from hell and the angel coming down from heaven, and share a Kit Kat. And it won awards, and it was really, you know, for me growing up, that was what everyone knew my dad for. Like, kids in the playground were like, is your dad the devil in the Kit Kat advert? Like, yeah. And I think it probably shaped some of my psyche, the fact that, you know, this image of him fully done out as a proper kind of devil. And it won awards and was considered a really brilliant advert, but Kit Kat sales went down. And this wasn't the first time that it happened. He'd also been in, I think, an opal fruit advert, playing a tube of opal fruits and saying, "Oh, doctor, I just feel so chewy," or something, or some awful thing. And again, you know, opal fruit sales had plummeted. But he turned it all around with the Citron adverts that he very proudly would tell me, "I've sold more Citrons than Claudia Schiffer." That was his grade. He was very pleased about that.
So do you want to introduce the second part?
Yeah, so here we have Mystery Bruises Part 2.
Yeah, anyway, so I didn't get the job at Watford. I did get to play Angus. It's on a later occasion. It was about 1967 I played Angus in the Colchester Repertory Company, it was. They were doing a method production of Macbeth. And they've got this Canadian director to direct, a fellow called Bill Doublett, a Canadian Macbeth as well, a fellow called David Calderisi, who's a Weasley actor. And anyway, the method production, it was all a novelty for me, and that was actually, you have to be there, everyone's got to be there for the first read-through. And then your director, Bill Doublett, says, well, it's a method production, you see. So in a method production, the small parts are of equal significance to the big parts. And man, that's good news if you're playing Angus. Also, you've got to live your part, you see. You have to live it. This goes a bit against the grain in the British acting tradition, really. Because really what we like to do is to look very serious about what we're doing, but secretly be going, whoops, ducky, with your colleague. And then another marvel is that on the Monday, like the last Monday, the dress rehearsal, and it's going to open in the evening, then those with the larger roles have to have written an essay on their part. Here's where I'm putting it. No, this we were just looking at a tattoo magazine. Anyway, they write quite a small essay on their part. Anyway, at the end of that, it was a bit embarrassing. I said, weren't we all meant to write one? And Bill Doublet said, he said, have you written one, Ken? I said, of course I've written one. I said, you said all the small parts were big, well, so going to be some big ones. Of course I have. Oh, I said, oh, I see yours then. So mine went like this. I said, so often in productions of Macbeth, the part of Angus gets overlooked. Angus makes his first entrance in Act 1, Scene 2. His cue is King Duncan's "Who comes here?" Then says the stage direction, "Enter Ross and Angus." In answer to King Duncan's query, Malcolm replies, "The worthy Thane of Ross." No mention is made of any Angus. Nor does anyone speak to him, nor does he say anything in that scene. Are they rudely ignoring him? If so, why? Has he committed some social gaffe? Have they maybe not seen him? Is he a dwarf? He makes his next entrance in Act 1, Scene 3, again in company with Ross. They're bringing news to Macbeth here, and Angus speaks. In fact, he uses up 9.5 of his allotted 18 lines. Macbeth acknowledges him. "Thanks for your pains," he says. So, either Macbeth is prepared to overlook this social gaffe, or, listen, they're bringing news of new titles are going to be heaped on Macbeth now, and so, logically, Macbeth's head would be modestly bowed at that moment, and so he would be likely to see the little fellow, however small. He makes his next entrance in Act 1, Scene 6. Enter King Duncan, Malcolm, Donalbain, Banquo, Lennox, Macduff, Ross, Angus, and attendants. Sadly, Angus seems to have gone back into his shell here. Do we take Banquo's line to refer to Angus? Banquo says, "I have observed the air is delicate." A reference to Angus? Certainly Angus seems to take offence. Angus is to be found nowhere in the Forest Dunsinane area for the next 110 pages. He doesn't even turn up for the banquet. The last we see of Angus is in Act 5, Scene 2. The call to arms. Now everyone's to fight the tyrant. And Angus, nobly forgetting his former squabbles, has joined up. He's made two very nice friends, Menteth and Caithness. And he lavishes his remaining 8.5 lines on them. A couple of them may be of interest. Angus says, speaking of Macbeth, he says, "Now does he feel his secret murthers sticking on his hands." Murthers, you see, trouble with his D's. But never else. Never else. So that times of stress. Murthers sticking on his hands. You know. The next line is interesting if you attempt to live it. "Now minutely revolts upbraid his faith breach." He concludes with, "Now does he feel his title hang loose about him, like a giant's robe upon a dwarfish thief." Or maybe better said, "Now does he feel his title hang loose about him, like a giant's robe upon a dwarfish thief." They've joined up quickly, haven't they? They've slung on the old uniform, little Angus. It's like barrack room humour, that. The last we see of Angus is quietly dressing up as a tree with the other boys. In Angus's case, presumably a bonsai. Anyway, what's interesting was my essay had a bigger impact on the production than anyone else's, actually. Because Angus is generally just lurking around at the bottom of the staircase with the attendants, you see. Well, meanwhile, there's important things. Plots are being hatched up the top of the staircase, you see. And so, like, to show that we're not overhearing what they're saying, we have to have our own little quieter life down the bottom. They're going, you see. But actually used to go, "Uh-oh, it's that smelly dwarf again." There you go. and tenants will sort of camp up over the other side of me. Oh, Christ, yeah. And when we bring the news to Macbeth, me and Ross, I suddenly realised where we were in the piece, you see. Because Macbeth wants to know about how the war with Norway is going. I was quite curious this. It was the first night. I didn't realise we were at war with Norway. I really didn't pay much attention, I suppose. Norway? Yeah. Anyway, we've been given swords now. We hadn't had them for the dress rehearsal, but been delayed. They've now been red starred up. So we got these swords. And I realised where we were. I'd just seen that Japanese movie, Throne of Blood. You know, which is their Japanese version of Macbeth. And they're rather good in that bit. When Toshiro Mifune, wants to know how the war with Norway is going, they go, and they draw it in the sand for him with their swords. Well, good that. So, right, well, Norway going. And I'll tell you something else of interest as well. There's been a lot of talk, people got rather interested in my research into Angus. I seems rather curious about Angus, actually. Everyone else is known by their second name mainly, like Macbeth. What's his first name? I don't know. Jim Macbeth. I don't know. Ronnie Macduff. We wouldn't know, But then Angus, he's only known by his first name. It's Angus. But nobody ever says it, so you wouldn't know there was an Angus in the play unless you read it. You see, so this is funny, isn't it? Why doesn't they, why do that? And they said, well, of course you can't say Angus in Macbeth. Macbeth, a real grim old piece, and Angus is a funny name. It's Angus, you get a laugh in the wrong place, you'd never wreck it, wouldn't it? So that's why they don't say his name. It's that's fucking daft as well, isn't it? I said, what it probably is, it's Shakespeare's part. Because Shakespeare used to take the role, it's sort of like a Hitchcock, wasn't he? You see, so that's probably his part, you see, that's the whole thing. And so evidently Shakespeare was a really, really little guy. And so what I'd done for the first night, I made up as Shakespeare. The beard and everything. But it had quite a wacky look to it because they couldn't afford the regular costumes. And so what they'd done is they'd bought a job lot of old fur coats. And it was like a sort of Stone Age version. But it was sort of a curious moment in Scottish history when they got really good swords, very good at swords, and staircases as well. Nice staircases they could do, but they hadn't come up with a kilt yet. Anyway, Macbeth wants to know, how the war with Norway is going. Right, and I'm with his sword. Macbeth went, what? And he fled to the wing. I was just going to draw it for you in the sand. And so Macbeth came sort of sheepishly limping. It was marvellous. And from that moment on, the whole production fell, like dominoes. There was a moment halfway through it. It's so terrific. Everyone saw it. The roof of the theatre lifted off, and we saw the laughing fat men in the sky. And when we got to the end, Macduff lost grip. Literally. This has happened to me. This has happened to most people. When you get really silly. Really silly. And then you lose all grip. There, you wouldn't be able to do anything like tie a shoelace, like that. Because you've gone silly, masculinely silly. And anyway, Macduff couldn't hold his sword. And so Macbeth had to run himself through. The investigation of blood. Great night, legendary night. And sad to say, many years later, I did get to have a big role in a classic. It wasn't a Shakespeare one, it was by his contemporary, I don't really know this man, Ben Jonson. It was not a play, it was Ben Jonson's comedy, The Alchemist. Yeah, comedy, you say, because if it's by Ben Jonson, for some reason you spell it C-O-M-E-D-I-E. It's a comedy, and this is comedy, The Alchemist. And I was the alchemist, and it's a funny piece. Well, not funny, that's the funny thing about it. It's about 3.5 hours long. And the plot's really quite good, but the way he writes his lines, it's sort of odd. Because, everyone knows this, like a comedy line goes, da-da-da-da-da-da, ping. It's a ping, but he pings right at the beginning. Johnson goes, ping, da-da-da-da-da-da. And then, anyway, so if you really work hard, you can get 20 laughs out in 3.5 hours. And obviously, it was the last night, and I was on stage, and I was thinking, well, man, this is shaming. isn't it? That you can't get more laughs out of a comedy than you can out of Macbeth. Anyway, I'd done my first speech, and I'd had a titter. There had not been a titter before. I thought, right, I'm going to work on that titter. And I was like trying to summon in strange forces. Okay, let's go for it. And I've got a marvellous fart building up, a real big one, like that. I'm quite a pro with things like that. And so I was really holding on to it. I don't want to waste it. Which trying to get this off. And I thought, I know, when Nicholas Prevo's Captain Face comes on, he always paused after his second line. So I went, boom, I'll let it off there. Now it might work on the titter, but more to the point, you might get Nicholas a bit tittery, you know, I mean, some sort of night might be got. And but then I was aware that I was not alone on the stage. There was an angel there, you know, like a regular one with feathery wings and everything, and had an order of clipboard with him, and a sort of odd-looking gadget. Anyway, the angel had come to take me off the list. You noticed, do you, that acting in the drama is it's a calling, you see? And the angel had come to call me in. I'm in number 14, time's up now. And he had just come to take me off the list. And I said, I was going to have a great time to choose. I said, it was the last night, you know. I said, you might as well let me, get through this. And then, do what I went around again. I was on all that fuss, actually. And the angel said, no, I've got to take you off right now, right? And then he came over with this gadget thing, and then he siphoned away my fart bubble by bubble, and sang a hymn and departed. You know that from our perspective, that space-time seems continuous, but from quantum mechanically, that's not so. From the quantum mechanical viewpoint, from the quantum viewpoint, it is called spongy and wormhole. And it's probably up through these wormholes in the space-time continuum that angels and the like come. That's only a theory. Anyway, I can tell you what it's like to be taken off the list. It's that you're clear. It's like you're clear. And you can see the audience, you can see how the scenery is constructed, you know who you are, you know that you're Kenneth and you're in Ben Jonson's comedy, The Alchemist, you play The Alchemist. And there's the little people of Nottingham down there. You know what will happen in a moment as well. There's a colleague of yours who'll come on, you know, quaintly painted, talking an order of gibberish for about that long, and then you'll be expected to reply in like mode. The problem is, can you think what you say at that moment? No, not really. No, not at all, actually. But do you think you might know what to say after he's come and said it? You know, it's possible, yeah, I don't know. You see, the last thing you need if you're playing those big parts is clarity. Clarity is fatal. I think you have to be in a trance, probably like 80% trance, I think, you know, to do those things. You know, you just don't want to be clear. Anyway, he came on, and we got to the end. It was my turn. I thought, well, do you know what to say? No idea. Is there anything, Kenneth, you'd like to say to this man at all on any subject? No. Anything you'd like to say to the good people of Nottingham? No. Well, probably make apologies and call an end to that. Yeah, I think so. Then with my eyes closed, it was like I could set there was a script somewhere. You know, it was like in a dream. In a drawer there. Unfortunately, it was very smoky, very foggy. But I could sort of, with my eyes closed, I could read a script in my mind's eye, but very limpingly, only bits of it actually. Whoa. And then the fat man came on, he wasn't funny, and the tall man came on, and he wasn't funny either, and it was my go again, like that. Ah, gee, and I decided to suppose that, you know, the god of my childhood, you know, nice old geezer, sort of Father Christmas chap with dressing gown, open-work sandals and no socks. I can't guess he's off doing his work, something like that. And you really know how long 3.5 hours is, actually, if you live it instant by instant like that. You know, got through it. And at the bowing, I mean, quite thick clothes we wore, thick costume, and mine was wet through. Anyway, after that, I never acted again in any live drama or comedy. Absolutely not. But about 5 weeks later, though, the angel came back and said, small parts in TV and films is all right. This is years ago, you know, this was, and I was at a party and I was telling someone about my angel, and this lovely nice chap came over, I'd not met him before, And he said, oh, he said, I couldn't help overhearing about your angel. He said, the angel came for me, you know. I said, really? And it was Ian Holm, and the angel apparently came for him when he was in the Iceland Comet playing Hickey. But in his case, he wasn't able to see any, scripts in drawers or anything. The understudy came on. He didn't act in my stuff. Again. But the angel must come back and told him he could have big parts in his case. But he came back very courageously. He did, didn't he? Last year he was in Boxing Pauses or something like that. The Almeida. They are great man. And then Nicole Williamson turns out isn't dead. And it's all right scheme, it might be a grand thing. It might be quite a good drunk actor, plays a legendary drunk actor. John Barrymore piece. But on the third night, the angel came for him. He was 10 minutes in. They go on. I don't know what happened there, because he must have done some deal with the angel. They let him on again. I don't know how. Anyway, it means that the angels are coming to one-man shows now. Come on, anyway, silly getting paranoid about fucking angels, isn't it? Anyway, let's get on. Yeah, anyway, I had supposed that, because I've been a real proper professional supposer now for about 8 years. And I suppose it was a worthwhile profession, I mean, for you, well, not for you, but for the seekers, and I'd like to open some doors for them, It had seemed to me that in the face of a lazy, frightened, ignorant establishment, and there should be somebody, say, come along, see, let me shine some light up this corridor, you dare come in, we could go in there, and that sort of thing. But I mean, 8 years really out of it. I mean, I suppose so far, I was beginning to think that I'd probably suppose myself into a suppository. And fearing the final step, I was saved by the bell. The telephone rang, and it was Windfall Films. Evidently, an outfit who make documentaries now for the TEVE, and they'd heard me talking about supposing, and they said, Ken, do you know what you're supposed to suppose? I said, what? They said, well, in science, for example, do you know what scientists are telling us that you're supposed to suppose now? I said, well, no, not really. I said, I'm not bothered with it. I said, I'm into pseudoscience, crank science, science fiction, stuff like that. I said, well, you suppose that if you need to know what you're supposed to suppose, I mean, you've got to ring anyone up, haven't you? I mean, that's all part of the university sausage machine, isn't it? Well, I said, well, I'm not actually, to be certain that you're right. They said, well, in any event, would I like to go around interviewing top-line scientists for a programme, and then the viewer could get educated along with me? And I thought, yeah, I think that's what I do want to do. Yeah, I'd like to find out. I said, yeah, I'm very keen. I'm very keen to know what you're supposed to suppose. Why not? Okay, anyway, so we set off, and the second one is called Reality on the Rocks. Anyway, nearly missed it all now, because it was, there's only three episodes to it, and 2 have gone out. They go out at 8 o'clock Sundays on Channel 4. Anyway, so I'm going to whip through it, because it's only the last bit, which is of great significance, one and all. Anyway, but I want everyone to catch up with their science. Now, okay, you knew this, everyone knew this, didn't you? There was nothing. There was absolutely nothing, then there was a fault. There was a fault in the grand celestial bugger-all. There was this fault occurred. It was smaller than the head of a pin, and it was so small, it had no dimension. Blimey. And anyway, this dimensionless thing got so hot and so heavy, it had to go kaboom! And it blasted out, and that's the Big Bang, and it was 19 billion years ago. Boom, and that's our universe. Boom, and it's an expanding universe. You want to know how big the universe is? I'll tell you how to work it out. Well, it's 19 billion years times the speed of light, the fastest thing we know about, times 2, because it went off in both directions. That will give you the width. All right. Well, when we say light being the fastest thing, there are of course tachyons, but they cheat, don't they? So, but we'll come to tachyons later. And also, I learnt that space is curved, Ken, and time is curved. Would you believe? Time is curved. Yeah. To me, that was a bit like when T.S. Eliot said. April is the cruelest month. It's a bit difficult to find anything you can do with the information. Anyway, if you ask a scientist, I'm run of the mill, If you ask a scientist, but what was before the Big Bang then? You know, what happened before it? They say you can't ask what happened before it because time began with the Big Bang. That's how Stephen Hawking could write his book, Brief History of Time, you see, because time begins. We're inside time's curve, you know that. And so you can't ask what happened. Well, I said, it seems to me I can. It's like hitting your head on a brick wall. What else did I do? We looked at galaxies. It was interesting. People who look at galaxies come from Romford, Dagenham or Ilford. So then this is on the Canary Islands, high up on a mountain, multinational observatories. They have lots of observatories. You know, lots of nations have built their own observatories up there. But all we've done is we've sent Bob. And Bob listens to the echo of the Big Bang, and he does this through like a sort of gramophone horn thing, not about that big. And it doesn't look all that impressive actually. I said, how much is one of these then? He said, about 10 grand. Anyway, says Bob, acting naturally for the camera. He said, well, shall we go in and listen to some of my recordings of the echo of the Big Bang? And I said, this is nice, we've given you a shed and everything. And anyway, Bob's shed, he put a pile of cassettes there on this thing. And he put one on, the echo of the Big Bang, and it sounds like this. I said, it sounds a bit like when you haven't found the station you're looking for on the radio. He said, well, that is the echo of the Big Bang too. He said you're getting a lot of interference, you see, down there from taxis and things. He said, but up here, where the air is pure. He gets really quite a nice echo up there, but even so, he's getting, it's a proper job. He's been doing it for about 9 years. Even up there, he does get a bit of interference up there, and part of his job, he's got to edit it out so he gets a nice clear. I said, what did you do with that when you got it then, Bob? And he said, well, then he has to monitor it for anomalies. Right, I said, anything of great interest so far? No. I said, what's the social life like up here? He said, well, he said 3 years ago a dog came by and he fed it and then a couple of days later there were 2 dogs. By the end of the month there was 140 dogs all round. So he had to call the dog catching lady and she came round them all up and gassed them. If you went to CERN, now you're at CERN, I mean people how many have heard of CERN? I think 1, 2. Oh, yeah, it's a big night at CERN. Oh, right. We've never had as many, so I guess that. CERN, yeah. CERN, anyway, I'll tell the other 2. CERN CERN is the most expensive scientific experiment ever undertaken by man. And it's such a big experiment that it's become the name of the place. And it's 2/3 in Switzerland, 1/3 in France. And what the thing is a 27-kilometre tube. There's tubes underground, and inside this tube is nothing, right? No, nothing. I don't mean, not awfully much really. I mean, nothing in it. Nothing in the tube. But then what the 1,000 chaps and 3 ladies of CERN do is that they generate subatomic particles. Subatomic particles, right? If you think of an atom for a moment, think of an atom, an atom, right? Just think of an atom for a moment as big as the Empire State Building, where the subatomic particle would be smaller than a grain of sand. What do I mean? That's the ratio. What I mean, subatomic particle, a really small gentleman indeed. When they generate these things, zang! And they send them around in opposite directions around the 27-kilometre tube, right? And there comes a moment, of course, when a couple of particles are going to collide. Now, the simile they give you there is mini-cars. They say, now, 2 mini-cars collided head-on a motorway, top speed, what would happen? And you think of it, you say, well, you've got crumpled mini-cars, dead people. No, that's the correct answer. But that apparently is not what happens with subatomic particles. when subatomic particles collide, well, just think of the minis for a moment. It would be as if when the minis collided, out of the collision came a vehicle transporter, a Panzer tank, a Rolls Royce, a Bentley, a Jaguar car. What I'm saying is new matter is formed with this subatomic particle collision. They collide. New matter is formed. It's not actually formed from the subatomic particles, because the subatomic particle geezers carry on to live. They're subatomic particle life. Right? So where's this new matter come from? Well, it's come from the energy. Because they're whizzed round these subatomic particles at speeds approaching that of light. You see? And it comes from the energy. Energy is formed into matter. But this is new matter to our universe. Well, what we mean is this is a matter of a sort which has not been in the universe before. We knew of a new sort. And each one is different from each other one. Except some say, oh yeah, no, it has been in the universe before, this sort of matter. But it was a long time ago, perhaps 19 billion years ago. Until the second, in fact, it was in the first second of the Big Bang, maybe. It was there, maybe. Anyway, here it is back again at CERN. And the thing is, that all the scientists now, see, are carrying around Finnegan's Wake. James Joyce's Finnegan's Wake. Because a lot of times now, they give the Nobel Prize not to the person who found something, but the person who gives it a really wacky name. like quarks. That fellow got the Nobel Prize for quarks. He didn't find them, he called them quarks. That's what he did, he found it in Finnegan's Wake. 3 quarks for Mr. Marx. The guy who found them, it was Murray Gell-Mann, and he called them aces. But the thing was, a fuck awful name, because there were only 3 quarks. There were a quark at that time, and he called them aces. Anyway, I said, quarks, 3 quarks for Mr. Marx. Finnegan's Wake. Yeah, no, quarks for you, mate. That's how it goes. Anyway, they've been whizzing these things together for 30 years now, I see. Oh, it's new matter. So, you suppose if you come here with Winfield Films and the camera, that you'll be shown into the back room now. They must have a jam jar full of stuff, at least by now. But sadly, no. Sadly, this stuff is very small, actually, and it only lasts for a few instances of time. Indeed, you wouldn't have known it had been there at all if you hadn't taken the trouble to build yourself a computer rather larger than Westminster Abbey. I mean, man, this is underground, this enormous thing. And I don't think of computers now as having wire in them, really. They work on some other principle, don't they? And why? This has got wire, it's got cabling going around it. As a matter of fact, it looks like several Pompidou centres, this to me. And it's so big. It doesn't have to be so big because, you're only using old-fashioned technology. And they say no. They say no. And they come from all over the world, these people at CERN. They've all got the same grin about them. They say, it's all absolutely up to the mark. Anyway, the chap who runs the big particle whizzing experiment is a fellow called Signor Amaldi. And Signor Amaldi was prepared to talk about before the Big Bang. He said before the Big Bang, he said there wasn't nothing. He said there were fields. He said, what are you thinking of? I said, well, I don't know, I was sort of thinking of cows and... No. He said, fields of potential. Anyway, evidently it was into these fields of potential. Right, that it was in the field of some field of potential. It blasted out into fields of potential, you see. He said, how many fields of potential would you think there were? I said, I don't know, I said, countless billions. 37. I said, we're sure about this, are we? I said, not 36. He said, well, that's a good question. He said, no, not 36. He said, there might be a few more than 37. He said, all I'm saying is, you couldn't do a universe like ours with less than 37 fields. The most significant for us. We wouldn't be here tonight. The lady wouldn't be there. Her handkerchief wouldn't be there. If it wasn't for field 37. That's the one to remember. Field 37. Thank you, field 37 wouldn't be here. Because when you think about it, when this fault occurred, why wasn't it all just energy or light, photons and stuff? What was it that hooked some of this energy, caught it, right? Curled it into matter, made it matter? Field 37 is the answer. Field 37, also known as Higgs's field, since it was Professor Higgs of Edinburgh who found it while it would have been close on. Anyway, no, said Signor Amaldi. He said, for most of us now, the experiment is not about the particles. It's about the nothing in the tube. Oh, really? I said, do you know about the cathars? No, he said he didn't. Anyway, I could suppose all that. Any problems with that? I suppose it. Well, I mean, to be sure some of it's unlikely. I mean, it's a bit unlikely, but everything's unlikely, isn't it? If you've got the courage, everything's unlikely. Did you know that? I mean, if you know the right line of questioning, you're going to utterly freak someone out with a cup of tea. Actually, there was a guy from the Romford Comprehensive, who's head of the art department, Romford Comprehensive. And I sent him completely up the pictures, just by asking him that set of questions about his trousers. You know, he still has to have counselling. All I'm saying is, I could suppose it. The men are nothing. I could suppose. But what I wanted to tell you about was I ran into great problems with the men of next to nothing. Now, to meet one of the very top men of next to nothing, you've got to go to Oxford, and his name is Dr. David Deutsch. And he's got number 13, we're calling in on him on his home, at his home. He's got number 13 on the gatepost, number 19 on the door. Anyway, the notion was that it was just to go and interview him, you know, no preamble, not Dr. David Deutsch, and then the camera was going in. It's been set up, of course, but I've not met him before. And the camera was meant to follow me in and into his living room, or where he worked for what. And anyway, Dr. David Deutsch, yeah. And he's a really nice guy with quite sort of longish hair. And like, I used to breed ferrets, and you get every so often you get a freak-friendly ferret. You know, it's not the purposes for which you breed them, of course, but it is like a friendly ferret. And anyway, Dr. David Deutsch, yeah. But then we couldn't get in. I mean, I could just about get in through his door, but certainly not the camera, because you know those free newspapers you get with all the ads in and everything? He got about 10 years worth behind the door that he never picked up. Anyway, I mean, I was out of the way for them. I had a hump never without the way. Take two, Dr. David Deutsch, yes. Anyway, then we went into his living and work. Do you know what I mean? I mean, my place isn't tidy to put it mildly, like nothing like this. I mean, this is like sort of being in a skip. It wasn't by any means all the scientific stuff. I mean, the 90% was just sort of crap, you know. Maybe a little old pizza on top of a crisp packet and all that, like that. Really muck, a mess. And anyway, he was offering me this chair. It looked like it, probably wouldn't catch anything. So. And but I mean, there's always stuff you don't know what's important or not. It's sort of kicking your way. Come sit down. Anyway, our director was very excited with all the crap over there. When he was whispering to the cameraman, saying, get cutaways, all the crap. Because that's what makes good television. Is, you cutaways of crap. That's how you get awards, you say. It's not good interviews, isn't it? Cutaways of crap. But that's only in the West. It's not universal, because I know this, because 3 weeks before he had the Japanese. The Japanese had come to find the latest in the quantum mechanical arena, and they'd bowed a bit and said, Doctor, can we clear out the place for the interview? And Doctor said, no, well, yes, certainly. He said, but you've got to put everything back exactly where it is. And so the Japanese had to spend an extra day there, and they had to Polaroid it and grid it. And he really meant it. No, a big old piece goes on top of the crisp packet. What a hero, smashing play. And anyway, they'd given me this to read before I met him. It's an article in the Scientific American. The quantum physics of time travel. Common sense may rule out such excursions, but the laws of physics do not. By David Deutsch and Michael Lockwood, you see. Common physics of time travel. Anyway, because you know the problems of time travel? I mean, the conundrum of it. You know how to time travel. Right. All right, lady, I'll just catch up, seekers. Okay. But just close your eyes. Close your eyes. Do you want to do it too? You can do it too. Right, let's send you both off. Okay, time travel. Time travel, close your eyes. Now, I want you to think, let's have an image that you can both probably share. The McDonald's clown. You know the McDonald's clown? Yeah? Well, but there's a way to get the McDonald's clown clearly in mind. an image on it. Yeah, is it coming? Good. Okay. Now we'll hang on to that. Right, you keep it, and then now get rid of it. Now it's not so easy to do that, you know. It'll sort of come and go, come and go, come and go a bit. But then finally, when they've completely got rid of the MacDonald clown image from their minds, they will find that they have travelled a little way into the future. But they will have done so at approximately the same speed as the rest of us. See, what we mean by time travel is cheating. You know, we want to get hugely ahead of everyone else, or go backwards. Now, the thing about going backwards is it is tricky. Because what happens if you go backward, for example, and you meet your grandfather, right? You go back in time, you meet your grandfather before he met your grandmother, yeah? And you just can't resist it. I mean, there's the meat cleaver, and you get it, and kaboom, right? You split that fella in twain. But what's going to happen to you? Because logically then you won't get born, so you can't have gone back. I mean, what happens then? You know, is it that you can't do it, or do you blink out, or what? Well, because what Dr. Deutsch says is that's nonsense. He said you can't travel backwards in time in your own universe. But there'll be another universe so similar to this one that you really wouldn't know the difference. And you can travel back in that one, you know, with your photo of your grandfather when he was 17, and meet him, and you can do what the hell you want with him. It just simply becomes that is the universe in which you do that. You see? I know it sounds muddling, but the article comes with a very easy to follow chart on this. So anyway, so I see, David, from this article, that you think there's more than one universe. I said, yes, absolutely. I said, well, if I've got it right, every time I make a decision in my life, you know, like my granny might be dying, you know, and I think, well, I must go and visit granny. And I think, actually, no, I'm going to go to that new wine bar. There's going to be one universe in which I go to meet grannies, and another universe in which I go to the wine bar. He said, yes, that's right, you've got it. And I said, that goes for everybody in the world. Yeah, everybody that ever has been or ever will be, yes. I said, well, it seems to me that sometimes dogs and cats make decisions. He said, you thought so too. I said, blimey, there's another universe for every decision every dog or cat makes, yeah. I said, I used to breed ferrets, you know. I said, I mean, man, there is a decision-making animal, if you like. Yeah, I said, well, how far are we going to go on this then, David? I said, gnats. I said, let's take one individual gnat in a swarm of gnats, you know. Maybe this gnat is going, shall I buzz there or buzz there? You know, yeah. Gnats. I said, well, atoms? I said, are atoms decision-making things? Yes. Now, I knew some words. I said, quarks. Now, I mean, quarks are extremely small geezers. Quarks are, you might say, the Anguses of the quantum mechanics. I said, quarks? Yes. Yeah, right. So, blimey, hear me, what he's saying. There are universes, at least to this number. The universe is not merely to the number of quarks that make up our universe, but to the number of decisions that these bleeding things make, and that's from 19 billion years ago. You're right to the end of the universe. Incidentally, the universe is expanding. It may expand on forever, in which case it'll get very cold. Or it might get to some point, and then it'll start going back into that point again, in which case time will go backwards there. And see, so you'll be sitting on the toilet, the pill will go up your bum, a few hours later you'll cough up and eat looking breakfast. Anyway, that's how that'll be. Anyway, but that's that number of universes, though. Phew. But he said he wouldn't stop there. He said he would regard every instant of time as a separate universe. By instant of time, he told me he meant the smallest parcel of time that you can have. He was saying, funny way of talking, that's how he talks. Parcels of time. Smallest parcel of time that you can have. Now, the parcels of time, or the instances of time, aren't linked to each other. They aren't joined together. In fact, it's an on-off business, the universe, and we are too. It's like we're here, not here, here, not here, here, not here, here, not here. I know it looks like we're here all the time, because we only know about it when we're here. You see, we go here, 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 here. We don't know about the not here part. Because we're not here. See? That's how it is. It's just an illusion. It's not exactly an illusion, it's a bit like a film. Anyway, so the instances of time aren't formally linked. What's holding them together are tachyons. Tachyons are backward time travelling particles. and maybe called tachyons because they tack together the instances of time, right? So if something could unclip the tachyons of time, then all the instances of time would just fall apart in the years and slip away from each other. So you see, our universe is currently composed of particles which haven't got here yet, and is in a state of depletion by particles which haven't yet gone. I said, I think this makes really any sense. He said, no, it doesn't. He said, quantum mechanics tells us that it's all up now for common sense. He said, if you meet anyone who claims to understand quantum mechanics, they haven't understood it. Is there any proof of this? Well, he said, yes. He says, there's quite a lot of proof. He said, the one we usually trot out, he said, is the twin slit experiment. You know about this, do you, with the slits? No? Yeah, well, you put a board up, right? You've got slit A and slit B. And then you fire one photon of light. And one photon is the smallest parcel of light that you can have, right? And you fire, ping, this photon of light at slit A and slit B. Now, faced with the decision of should it go through slit A or slit B, the photon goes through both. Well, I said, well, it splits up. He said, no, it doesn't split up, it goes through both. I said, well, it bounces or something, comes back through the other. No, it goes through both. I said, yeah, I've seen a word of this. I said, oh yeah, that's right. Because can't particles be in two places at once? Deutsch said, he said they can be in way more than two places at once. I said, maybe then there's just one extremely versatile particle. You know, that's what the whole show. He said that was an idea that Richard Feynman had 20 years ago. He said he gave me this book. He said, frankly, we give it a low order of probability these days. And anyway, his explanation of this, extraordinary twin slit phenomenon, is that clearly what's happening is that, for example, in our universe, the photon goes through slit A. In an adjacent universe, it goes through slit B. What we're seeing there is one universe interfering with another, right? I see you forgive me. I find it a bit flimsy. It's this whole theory of these twins and their slits. I said, now come on, David. I said, have you yourself actually had any experience, one-to-one experience with another universe? Yeah, he said, quite a lot. I said, yeah, what? And he said, well, he was earning a lot of extra money on the side in the field of cryptography. This is the writing of codes. And he was telling me, you can't write codes like you used to, like in the water, full Germans. He said, code like that would be unravelled in less than a second by a good computer. He said, the only really 100% safe way to hide information is to hide it in another universe. And it's only himself, Texan Timothy Witt, and a few others who actually know the technique of this. And so they're picking up quite a bit on the side. Anyway, he said it'll all be cleared up to everyone's satisfaction with the building of the quantum computer. He's all out the back now, new scientist. Quantum computing, the power of parallel worlds, you say. The quantum computer, yeah, because at quark level, the quarks are able to go in and out of all the universes of the multiverse, you see. They can make it through the wormholes, the sponges, as we mentioned before. And so, our good Dr. Deutsch in our universe, he's busy building the quantum computer, see? Right, in our universe. Now, the next universe along the way is only one nap decision different from this one, right? And so there's the Dr. Deutsch in there, look-alike, seem-alike, name-alike fella in that, and quadrillions of all these Dr. Deutsches all building their quantum computers. I mean, you've got to go a hell of a way through the multiverse before you get to a universe which is radically different to this one. But it's all there. Everything that is logical and possible, doesn't break the laws of physics, will be somewhere. There'll be that universe somewhere. Absolutely. But anyway, imagine there's all these Dr. David Deutsches building their quantum computers. And then they push the button at the same time, and kazang! They all join up through the multiverse, all these things. I said, oh, what happens then? And he said, we'll be able to do computations way beyond the scope of our own universe. He said, it'll all be cleared up to everyone's satisfaction with the the building of the quantum computer. He's all out and about now, new scientist. Quantum computing, the power of parallel worlds, you see. The quantum computer, yeah, because at quark level, at quark level, the quarks are able to go in and out of all the universes of the multiverse. You see, they can make it through the wormholes, through the sponginess, as we mentioned before, and so our good Dr. Deutsch in our universe, he's busy building the quantum computer. See, right, in our universe. Now the next universe along the way is only one nap decision different from this one, right? And so there's the Dr. Deutsch in there, look-alike, seem-alike, name-alike fella, and quadrillions of all these Dr. Deutsches all building their quantum computers. I mean, you've got to go a hell of a way through the multiverse before you get to a universe which is radically different to this one. But it's all there. Everything that is logical and possible, doesn't break the laws of physics, will be somewhere. There'll be that universe somewhere. Absolutely. But anyway, imagine there's all these Dr. David Deutsches building their quantum computers. And then they push the button at the same time, and kazang! They all join up through the multiverse, all these things. I said, well, what happens then? And he said, we'll be able to do computations way beyond the scope of our own universe. I said, like what? He said, well, maybe crunching numbers of an incredible order. He said, like, we'll be able to factorise numbers way beyond the number of quarks in our universe, for example. I said, David, will this add to the sum of human happiness? And he gave me the stern grin. He said, well, I think so. He said, mathematicians are human, aren't they? to be honest, I couldn't do that. Could you do that? The multiverse. I can't do that. I couldn't do the multiverse. I felt really miffed, you know. It's like I've been mega out-supposed by So anyway, so when I got back to my little hotel in Oxford, I'm not going down the pub tonight. And I was writing notes down. I mean, it's just like, you couldn't hardly believe that you'd heard these things. Well, these will be useful one day, all these things. There's about 10. So, well, actually, I will go down the pub. And, but I just had a couple of pints, that was all. There's some very interesting people in the pub, actually. I had a couple of pints, went back and wrote a few more notes in my... But the next morning, I had all these bruises on here, and I thought, I couldn't think what this was about, you know, because I could account for my life. Professor Penrose and done my notes, gone down the pub, and a couple of... I definitely hadn't been hit by a bus. And then I thought, I know. In a universe not so far from here, another Ken went down to the pub. You know, he got a really interesting company. And this is interference from another universe. Ridiculous. And anyway, I'd asked David Deutsch about what's his name again? About Stephen Hawking, and I said, what does Hawking think of your ideas? David Deutsch said, I don't know. He said Stephen sits on the fence a bit, to be honest. He said he knows the ideas. He said, I don't know what his opinion is. I don't know. Actually, I was thinking, really, yeah. I don't know what I said. You know, I heard he's the greatest brain on the planet, isn't he? And I had to interview him, you see. So I thought, well, if Hawking was on this multiverse, then it'd be worth it, wouldn't it? He'd say, well, you give it your best then, you know, but maybe not going too much too. And the way they film it, so on Sunday, it's really quite beautiful, actually, because we waited for him to be coming to work. He was a bit late. He goes to work sometimes on his own, and that was the shot that was wanted. You know, like they say someone's got witty body language, but Chris Hawking's got like witty trolley language. You know, really, he's asked questions with it, and he can rap out. He's got no voice box, so but he's got this machine voice, and he goes, yes, no, fuck off. He goes. This is like what you say. He runs over your foot. And he laughs a lot, but because he hasn't got vocal cords, it comes out curious, and like that. Actually, quite similar to the echo of the Big Bang. And I'll tell you what was quite sweet as well, because this is what I mean by it's a stunt to interview it. Is that you have to send in your questions 2 weeks in advance, and then he's put them all in his computer, you see, and so you ask him the question, and he pushes the right number, and it just plays. In fact, it plays out of his back, like that. So actually, if you're listening to him, I mean, logically, you're sort of turning round to him, you know, in like that, but because it was for the TV, I sort of sit there back and look at him, you know, like, I mean, he wouldn't have to be there, actually, but he is. Anyway, he played along with that, and to the extent of his abilities, he looked like he was taking an interest in what he was saying, which he does. He's got little use of his eyelids, and his mouth does express curiously. It actually does. A bit. Anyway, there we are. That was that. But the deal was I was to be allowed to ask him a question of my own. You know, after the questions that they needed for the programme had been asked. It's a good idea having him on the show like that because you get a lot of foreign sales. And anyway, so we got. He'd undertaken, as long as it wouldn't take more than an hour to answer, he would answer my question. Anyway, so my question was this. I said, sir, now, I said, are these many, many universes of the multiverse, are they all as real as this one seems to me to be? And Professor Hawking said, yes. So there are Siggers, that is what you are supposed to suppose. Right? And I know for some of you it is difficult. It is going to be difficult. But I suggest you wrestle with it. Because it is what you're supposed to suppose now, alright? There's nothing to do with all that. This is it, right? Go on, boom, you know. And become it. Go on, walk out of here, ladies and gents of the multiverse. And I do tell you, you will be the happier for it. Just think about it for the moment like this. Let's say all the universes of the multiverse are stacked up like that, like a huge deck of cards. Look, at the top, there's going to be a universe where everything goes extremely well for everybody and everything concerned, you know? And then there'll be one at the bottom of the deck where everything goes extremely grim over everybody and everything concerned, right? You could call that one heaven if you like, you could call that one hell if you wish to. All we don't know is which universe we're in. It's like a universe competition. We don't know which one we're in, but we get to choose it. We get to define which universe we're in. Get it? Listen, I mean, there's going to be a universe. Listen, there will be a universe where the Bible is a jest book. It's logical, it's possible, and it doesn't make the laws of physics to say so, so it is. Oh, dear, sweet, loving, laughing Jesus, let that be our one. There will also be a universe where great playwrights write comedies that you're not meant to laugh at. And I can tell you which universe that is, actually. Listen, this is Ben Johnson speaking to you across the centuries. Recorded here direct, Johnson saying, as Aristotle says rightly, the moving of laughter is a fault in comedy, a kind of turpitude that depraves some part of man's nature. Commentator here. For Ben Jonson, Johnson viewed laughter as always potentially unseemly, because it was a sign of disturbed bodily control. What a bastard! Wow. No. You see, I mean, the whole point here, Siggers, is quantum mechanics clearly tells us that must be it now. We've got to wind up on all serious drama, right? And it's you out there who can do that. I mean, don't ask, the poor buggers out here, trying to earn a crust to do that. It's you who's got to work at that, okay? I mean, because like people who really get off on it, people who get off on serious drama. I'm not talking about Suits. Suits coming along don't matter. I'm talking about the people who really do get off on it, and they do, there are them, and they do. And we've got to face it, they are traitors to our universe, quite simply. Because that moment, at the crisis, climax of the piece, that bit they get off on, do you know the name for that? It's catharsis. And at that moment, we are losing from our universe high-grade quarks. At that moment. But when you laugh, when the laughter comes in, I mean, we really need to say when you're laughing, you're bringing in high-quality quarks. Man, wasn't that so sad that those lesbians abseiling into the House of Commons turned out to be a one-off stunt? All lesbians must learn to abseil. You know, there must be no grim male endeavour that doesn't feel itself under threat from these fine ladies, you know. Why, watch out, Sir John, there's some lesbians here. Thank you very much. Nice speaking. Thank you very much.
Ken Campbell, The Seekers podcast, was produced and presented by Daisy Campbell and David Bramwell, with kind permission from the Ken Campbell estate. Music was by Horton Jupiter. It was funded by Arts Council England. Ken Campbell interview with kind permission of Sheridan Thayer.